If George Orwell turned up at the next Labour Party conference, they'd probably rough him up and throw him out, like they did that old boy a few years ago. Orwell was a socialist, all right, but his version was about dignity and democracy, not bullshit and bullying. He'd have had a field day with this poxy coalition and made mincemeat of Murdoch and his crew. Someone once called him the saint of common decency. Orwell, that is, not Murdoch. And couldn't we do with a slice of that today, eh? Can you believe there's no record of George Orwell's voice? No grainy old footage to save for 2084. There are statues of Andy Capp, Billy Wright and Thomas Bloody Cook, but none of the man who gave us Orwellian, Big Brother and the Brave Boxer. The Maverick's Maverick started life as Eric Arthur Blair. Bloody Blair, the lying, murdering bastard! Eric's parents networked to get him into Eton, where he was supposed to sit easily in what he called the lower, upper, middle class. He lived for a while in the family home at Southwold, the soulless second home retreat on the Suffolk coast, without a bus stop or a railway station. He didn't like Southwold, and Southwold didn't like him. Still don't.
His name was Eric Blair, but the likeness stops right there. His words could all be trusted, and his mind was always fair. Oh, 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 the Southwold morning view. I'd like to take a Southwold walk with you, while others kept their distance. He went down and out. He lived with tramps and drifters in the depths of a London town. And later in the story, the Eton boy went on, where he made it to the coalface, and he joined them in their world. Oh, 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 the Southwold morning view. I'd like to take a Southwold walk with you. Oh, 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 the Southwold morning view. I'd like to take a Southwold walk with you. And the truth is in the words, and the words speak stark and plain. But sometimes they are gorgeous, and they speak to heart and head. But don't ask me what that truth is, 'cause I can't explain that here. I only know when it's spoken, you can hear it crystal clear. That's crystal clear. He went to do his calling in the Spanish Civil War, fighting for his ideals in the shit and piss and the cold. And maybe 10 years later, he wrote 1984. Well, I wonder what he'd write now, in this world full of hatred, this world full of war. I said, oh, 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 the Southworld morning view. I'd like to take a Southworld walk with you. Oh, 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 the Southworld morning view. I'd like to take a Southworld walk with you.
He never went to uni. No gap year for young Eric. Instead, he followed in his father's footsteps to serve the Empire and became, of all things, a copper in Burma. But that was where he developed a conscience and a lifelong hatred of bullies. Orwell loved England, where the beer is bitterer, the coin's heavier and the grass greener. And he loved to bang away at his typewriter with a roll-up of strong tobacco and endless cups of strong tea. Indian, from a warmed pot, tea poured into the cup before the milk, and no sugar. Tramps on the road to the Kent hopfields took him for a toff on hard times, but he never affected a Cockney accent and loved it when someone called him mate. Perhaps most of all, he was obsessed with how the poor lived and how they died. He was never all that well himself, as you probably know, and the bullet that went through his neck in Spain was hardly health and bloody safety. George Orwell, God bless him, died aged 46 from TB in January 1950, 6 months after the publication of what he called that wretched book, 1984. He also wrote with strong tea and sympathy about another George, the middle-aged George Bowling from the suburbs, who badly needed to be coming up for air.
I bent down to pick up a primrose. I couldn't reach it. Too much belly. I squatted down on my haunches and I picked a little bunch of them. Lucky there was no one there to see me. I stood up and I put my little bunch of primrose on a gatepost. And then, on an impulse, I slid my false teeth out of my mouth and I had a look at them. If I'd had a mirror, I'd have had a look at the whole of myself, though, as a matter of fact, I knew what I looked like already. A fat man of 45, in a grey herringbone suit, a little bit the worse for wear, and a bowler hat. A wife, 2 kids, and a house in the suburbs written all over me. But the thing that struck me as I stood there giving my dental plate the once over is that it doesn't matter. Even false teeth don't matter. I'm fat, yes. I look like a bookie's unsuccessful brother, yes. No woman will ever go to bed with me unless she is paid to. I know all that. But I don't care. I don't want the women. I don't even want to be young again. I just want to feel alive. And I was alive that moment as I stood there looking at my primrose. I wondered why it is that we are all such bloody fools. I mean, why don't people, instead of the things they do spend their time on, just spend their time looking at things? I mean, this pool, for instance, the stuff that's in there. Newts, water snails, water beetles, caddisflies, leeches. God knows what else you can only see under a microscope. The wonder of their lives down there under the water. You could spend a lifetime, 10 lifetimes, just looking into this one pool and never get to the end of it. And all the time, that feeling of wonder, that indescribable flame. It is the only thing worth having, and we don't want it. But I do.
George Boland got up and went as far as his petrol tank, searching for pastures clear and lukewarm beer. He thinks as he drives along, where have my best years gone? The world goes on passing by, and George carries on. Where's it from? This wind that drives others on, and our hearts know when our soul is coming up for air. He heads for his childhood town and wonders what it's like now. He pulls in and drives along to his secret pond. The town pond is now the dump. The fish and the newts are gone. He smiles as he turns around to the war to come. Where's it from? This wind that drives us on, and our hearts know when our soul is coming up for air. The green trees and the wildflowers and the sky and the churchyard and the spire and the river runs nearby, and it takes you deep inside, coming up for air. George heard a sweet left foot could pick out a pass and shoot, but he passed on the call from Spurs for the his and hers. Where's it from? This wind that drives us on, and our hearts know when our soul is coming up for air. The green trees and the wildflowers and the sky, the churchyard and the spire, and the river runs nearby, and it takes you deep inside, coming up for air, coming on up for air, coming on up for air, coming on up for air.
When you go down a coal mine, it's important to try to get to the coal face when the fillers are at work. This is not easy, because when the mine is working, visitors are a nuisance and are not encouraged. But if you go at any other time, it is possible to come away with a totally wrong impression. The time to go is when the machines are roaring and the air is black with coal dust, and when you can actually see what the miners have to do. At those times, the place is like hell, or at any rate, like my own mental picture of hell. Most of the things one imagines in hell are there. Heat, noise, confusion, darkness, foul air, and above all, unbearably cramped space. When you finally got there, you crawl through the last line of pit props and see opposite you a shiny black wall 3 or 4 feet high. This is the coal face. Overhead is a smooth ceiling made by the rock from which the coal has been cut. Underneath is the rock again, so that the gallery you are in is only as high as the ledge of coal itself, probably not much more than a yard. The first impression is the frightful, deafening din coming from the conveyor belt which carries the coal away. You cannot see very far because the fog of coal dust throws back the beam of your lamp, but you can see on either side of you the line of half-naked kneeling men, 1 to every 4 or 5 yards, driving their shovels under the fallen coal and flinging it swiftly over their left shoulders. It's impossible to watch the fillers at work without feeling a pang of envy for their toughness. It's a dreadful job that they do, an almost superhuman job by the standard of an ordinary person, for they are not only shifting monstrous quantities of coal, they are doing it in a position that doubles or trebles the work. They've got to remain kneeling all the while. They could hardly rise from their knees without hitting the ceiling. The fillers look and work as though they were made of iron. They really do look like iron-hammered statues under the smooth coat of coal dust which clings to them from head to foot. It's only when you see miners down the mine and naked that you realise what splendid men they are. Most of them are small, but nearly all of them have the most noble bodies. Wide shoulders tapering to slender, supple waists, and small, pronounced buttocks and sinewy thighs with not an ounce of waste flesh anywhere. You can never forget that spectacle once you've seen it. The line of bowed, kneeling figures, sooty black all over, driving their huge shovels under the coal with stupendous force and speed.
"400 yards down. It's darker than we've ever seen. It's deeper than we'll ever be. So let's sit